Well, here we are on the 1st of November, and guess what? The tropics are busy, of course. And of course, we have the month starting out rather warmish in the eastern part of the U.S. And after last night and today's showers, it's going to be dry for the next 5 days. We're going to talk about all of that. Very interesting long range, too. Very interesting tropics, too. Just an overall fascinating night, I guess. That's all right here on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. Of course, brought to you tonight and every night by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area. And with winter coming, Joe Rayo, what is important?
It's
Rocks.
important.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I thought you were asking me the question. Yes, rock salt, and I'm sure that a lot of folks out there will be, and as Joe has mentioned, time and time again, when there have been shortages of rock salt in the tri-state area or in portions of the Northeast United States, many people know where to go to get their fill of their rock salt, and that is at Omni True Value, because the hardware store or the place where they usually get it is out, but not at Omni. Never at Omni.
No, and
Right, Joe?
they have all the snow and ice melt products you could possibly imagine. Still have some mulch in case you want to make your front yard look good for the dwindling time that we have left for the autumn season. And of course, everything you need to make sure your home is secure and stands up to adverse weather. That includes generators, snow blowers, and all the rest of it. 631-756-1125. They have the best prices not only in town, but just about anywhere. And the website is.
OmniTrueValue.com. And you want to know who the smart people are, Joe?
Who are the smart people, Joe? You tell
The
me.
smart people are those who, of course, number one, tune in to the Joe and Joe show,
Well, clearly.
because they know that that is where you're going to get the best. I'm going to just lower my camera just a little bit because my head is a little cut off here. So that should be a little bit better, right?
Hold on, let me take a look. Oh, you look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. I got a haircut.
I know you got them all cut.
Actually, I got them all cut.
And,
Yes.
and and your colorist dyed in the white perfectly as usual.
Well, I had to look. I thought I'd look a little bit fancier or classier than I normally do. I mean, I'm with family here. I mean, we got like 100, 150 people each night, a lot more when there's active weather. But I had to do a library talk beforehand. And so I wanted to exude a little class, so to speak. So I'm wearing a dress shirt, which you and I both had to wear every single freaking day that we were on television for all of those years that we were on television. But now we're not under the thumb, so to speak, of the corporate television people. They can't tell us what to wear. We could wear anything. You're proudly wearing your Giants blue and red. So, I just felt like wearing a nice dress shirt tonight for the library talk that I gave. But I could have worn anything I want. Where was I?
I know.
Oh,
Well,
the smart people, the smart people. All of you who are watching Joe and Joe right now and know that you can get the most accurate weather will soon realize or soon hear temperatures this weekend are going to be in the 70s. It's November, 70s. And you know what? If you're really smart and if you have, well, I only have a semi-extensive, but I mean, for those of you who have an extensive Christmas light decoration, and and you have to set it up on the roof and, on your front lawn and your back lawn or something like that. Let me tell you something. It's going to be a heck of a lot easier and more pleasurable to do it. I know we're still many weeks away from Christmas.
do it now.
But if you do it now, well, now maybe not now, but this weekend, Saturday, at least 72 degrees. I mean, there you go. Would you rather do it this Saturday as opposed to maybe the end of the month or early December when the temperature could be a full 30 or 40 degrees colder? The choice is up to you. But I tell you, and Joe, if I didn't have something to do on Saturday, That's might very well be what I would want to do on Saturday, but I've got unfortunately things planned.
Well,
So
um, I agree with you, and I'm glad you jumped aboard the it's going to be in the 70s ship for this weekend. Uh,
yes,
yes, you were just a little skeptical yesterday, but you're in a much better frame of mind today, which is even better.
no, not really, not really. You said yesterday that you would not be surprised to see temperatures in and around the tri-state area
In the mid to upper
mid,
70s.
mid to upper. And I said, "Are you sure?" And I did say before the show ended yesterday, low 70s for Lower Hudson Valley, mid 70s, upper 70s. That's kind of pushing the envelope, at least for the Hudson Valley.
Yeah,
I think that'd be pushing the
yeah,
envelope.
we of course, we encompass a large area, and that includes a lot of folks in Central and South Jersey and Southeast PA. So, I agree. I mean, some places will be lower than others, but the hot spots might do well. Now, of course, this is all going to depend on how much sun we have, and particularly on Sunday, low clouds may be developing in some places. How long it takes to them during the overnight hours? How long does it take those low clouds to burn off? We shall see. Now, I got here's a little bit of a pop quiz for you. All right. So
Yes.
it has only happened in 2001. It happened in 2020, and it has happened this year, 2022. Do you know what and this is a weather question. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Uh, hmm. 20. It happened in 2020.
2001, 2020,
20.
and 2022.
Really? I don't know. Abnormally mild temperatures for
No, no, no.
November.
This is something specific. This is something specific. We could do it the truth or consequences way, in which case I would have already gone. Nah.
Yes. Be like Bueller the Buzzer.
No. Our resident hurricane statistician Anthony Orr has who is so good in the research that he does has pointed out that this is only the third time in the satellite era, which began in 1966. This is only the third time that the Atlantic Basin has had two tropical cyclones simultaneously in the month of November.
And at the same time, too.
Yeah, exactly. The two other years, 2001, the other 2001, 2020, now 2022, and we had it with in 2001, it was with Eta and Theta, and in 2020, it was with Theta and Iota.
And believe it or not, we had to get those were the years in 2001 and in 2020. We actually needed Greek letters, and we're doing it now without the use of Greek letters. We haven't even come close to the end of the alphabet yet.
Yeah, I'm a little. You think about it, Joe. There's especially with models keying lower than normal pressures for the next 10 days or maybe even a little bit longer than that in the Southwest Atlantic and in the Caribbean. It wouldn't be a shocker if we wind up with another one early next week. Off the Florida coast, but that's
Right.
part of what we're going to be talking about tonight. Yes, it is very warm here in the relatively speaking to average in the east, and it's cooler than normal in the west. There's all sorts of things going on in the long range, which I have yet to kind of figure out or try to figure out where it's all going to go. We've been talking about the pattern kind of changing around November 9th, November 10th, and taking us down a road beyond November 10th. And I still think that is going to be the case. In fact, I probably feel a little bit stronger about it today than I did yesterday and the day before. So every day it looks more and more like that's going to happen. But Otherwise, they're getting the ball game in. There's no renegade showers that I saw on the radar, so there shouldn't be any problems in Philadelphia right now.
Incidentally, I was just it's we have Lisa and we have Martin out there right now, and I'm saying to myself, Lisa Martin. I wonder if there's any famous person or noteworthy celebrity with the name Lisa Martin, and believe it or not, award-winning songwriter Lisa Martin,
There you
a
go.
native of Western Massachusetts. Her songs are melodic and catchy, and also we have. Lisa Frances Onyiki, formerly Martin, born in 1960, a famous Australian long distance runner. And in the marathon, she won the 1988 Olympic marathon. So there are people out there named Lisa Martin. And for the short time that these two tropical systems are going to be on the map, there you go, Lisa and Martin.
And I have the satellite loop of where you could see both of them. Now, Martin is now it certainly does have the look now of at least a subtropical system, if not a full-fledged tropical storm. Now you look at it and you say, okay, well, Joe, how come it's got that long line of clouds that's out down well to the east? What's happened is that if you look at the analysis on a map, there's a separate little flow, a little frontal wave that is moving away from this, and Martin is just sort of separating itself from that as a distinct warm core cyclone. So I think it's it is definitely got the look of a tropical cyclone, or at the very least a rather impressive looking subtropical cyclone. And meanwhile, Lisa has a shot here of becoming a Category 2 hurricane before it makes landfall in Belize sometime tomorrow. And it's been moving right along. It's got this sort of oblong east-west stretch here to it, but everything in terms of what's in the upper air and what's in terms of the outflow and everything else suggests that we could see this strengthen pretty rapidly before it goes inland in Belize. It has certainly some time, and I'll show you. I've got the model guidance, the hurricane track model guidance. A lot of the models now have this certainly as a Category 1, and a few of them get it very, very close to a Cat 2 before landfall, sometime maybe 24 hours or so from now. And the track model guidance, very interestingly enough, Joe, has kind of shifted a bit to the north. So now instead of going into the Pacific, virtually all of the models, except for a couple that do some strange tracks, take this into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Now, the upper air conditions in the southwest Gulf, by the time it gets there, sometime over the weekend or whenever it's going to be, are not going to be ideal for redevelopment. So I don't think the Hurricane Center is too concerned about that when it gets into the southwest Gulf. But you know what? Stranger things have happened, and it's probably worth keeping a little bit of an eye on once it does get in there. Martin, in the meantime, I keep thinking for some reason it's Martian, but I keep thinking of Ray Walston in my favorite Martian. Hold on, let me get back to. We do have a reconnaissance aircraft in there right now. So the pressure from the advisory, I believe, was 997, and it's still 997 on the first fix. But looking at the wind field, starting to see some. There's actually one darker red barb there that would indicate wind between 60 and 64 knots. But certainly a fair amount of wind barbs measured at flight level between 55 and 60. Also, you see the brighter white cloud tops still kind of separated around, so it's still trying to organize. And they did even mention the fact that there was some residual dry air that was entrained into the circulation, but that they expected that to not be an issue when it comes to intensification. So on that note, let me just bring up the forecast from the Hurricane Center, And, well, this is Martin, so we've got Martin here. This is really a shipping lane issue here for Martin, which is also forecast to become a hurricane tomorrow and continue on northeastward up toward, not quite to Greenland or not quite to Iceland, or somewhere in between there, but it gets pretty far north there, 60 north and about 35 west. It'll be interesting to see, Joe, if that does anything, if it becomes a hurricane, whether it does anything in terms of ushering in changes in the overall pattern. 35.4 and 54.5 is the position. Top winds are 60 miles an hour, moving east at 13. We have Lisa. Lisa is at 16.7, 84.0. Forecast to become a hurricane tonight. Top wind 65 miles an hour on the 8 o'clock advisory, moving west at 15. And you see they have it a hurricane. We got hurricane warnings for the coast of Belize and a small portion of southeastern part of the Yucatan Peninsula. Then weakens. They still have it as a tropical depression by 2 p.m. Saturday, just sort of sitting there in the southwest Gulf. So they're not really too concerned about it going much further than that.
And I guess, as you just pointed out in your discussion of both tropical systems, there is no way, even if we do get a third tropical cyclone off the southeast coast of the United States early next week, there's no way that the other two are still going to be on the map. So
right.
there's no chance that we're going to get three, trifecta, so to speak.
Correct. So on that note, let's go back to the U.S. satellite view. And on the loop tonight, the loop is kind of behind. I'm going to give this a refresh. For some reason.
Yeah, because it's still daylight over the United States.
Yeah, I know. I saw that on the other loop that I had up earlier, and I refreshed it. So I'm just refreshing this now. So let's see if I can get the. No, apparently they must be having some issues because you can see where the sunset line is. It's back through Nova Scotia, so that was hours ago. Let me give it one more refresh just in case. See if that helps it along. Or maybe I'll switch it to 60 frames. Let's see what happens if I add 12 more frames to it. And nope, it's a GOES issue. So not mine.
No, it's not. No, it's not, Joe. Apparently, I don't know maybe the website that you're using, it's an issue with them because I'm looking at the RAP satellite.
Oh, no, it's the web. What I mean is it's the GOES image viewer on NOAA. It's their issue. It's not my issue.
Yeah.
Okay. You're seeing it. You've got it on the RAP, and it's up to date. So you know what? I'll tell you what. Since you have an updated satellite image, why don't you show it? And then we can come back to this one.
I'd love to, as long as you allow me to share.
Of course, I'm always the sort of person that allows people that likes to share. And Howard Hassel has thrown in some change into the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Howard, for hitting super chat. It is most appreciated. By the way, welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board, joining us for the later than normal start. Normally at 7:35 p.m. is our start time on Monday through Thursdays, but tonight Joe had the library talks, and we can tell you right now there's going to be another library talk tomorrow night. Correct, Mr. Rayo?
But correct. But my talk tomorrow night starts at 6:30, so we can get started a half an hour earlier than we did tonight at 8 o'clock.
Fabulous.
And then I think you explained, or maybe you didn't, but I think you said something to the effect like, we're not having a show on Thursday.
Right. Thursday, no show on Thursday, because I have a prior
things to do.
I have things to do.
Yes.
So there you go. You're up on the screen. So go for it.
Well, this is the Northeast. This is the 6 hours leading just from past sunset. And you can see the darkness spreading across the region. Notice, if you will, also rather cloudy and dreary until about an hour or so before sunset. And then all of a sudden, the clouds break up. And it was a beautiful sunset in the immediate New York area, Joe. Skies are mostly clear right now. And that should lead us into a beautiful, lovely day for tomorrow. Is any other part of the country you want to take a look at, or
Um, can you see if you could get maybe let's go to the northwest because there's some action going on there in the northwest with rain and snow. That's the next weather system that is approaching from the west.
okay? Well, this is centered, I believe, on Lewiston, Idaho, and you could see like the darkness line is just reaching Idaho by the time the loop comes to an end. But you can see a lot of cloud cover across Washington and Oregon, and across Idaho as well, as that next system, I guess, pushes in from the west. I just want to see if I can get a full view of the contiguous U.S. Um, oh, yeah, there you go. That's nice. Look, I guess they flatten it out. They don't give you that. Boy, that's something. It's too bad we don't have the old music from the soap opera The Edge of Night. Dun 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 dun.
Oh
The
God.
Edge
Of
of
night.
Night.
Yeah, they're all gone.
Um,
All those shows are all gone.
Pretty much.
Yep.
But anyway, but here you see there is a cloud system moving into the Pacific Northwest. Mostly clear, it looks like, across much of the plain states. And then more clouds coming up from the Gulf states across Louisiana. And then another system, another front, I guess, moving in from the west. This is, whatever this is a dry system. So we'll have a nice day tomorrow. Then a little bit of a cool down coming our way on Thursday. But still, it looks like, Joe, it's going to be dry here for tomorrow, for Thursday, for Friday, Saturday, and even on into Sunday as well. We may not see our next chance of any wetness here until maybe the start of next week on Monday.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely, that's the common theme. We could argue about how high the temperatures will or won't be, but one thing we know for sure that there's going to be no rain for the next 5 days at least. And meanwhile, of course, with all the action in the lack of action in the east, we're at the time of year now. If there's going to be a ridge in the east, there's going to a strong ridge building in the east. There's going to be a deep trough developing in the west, and you can see the radars are very busy here with rain along the coast, and of course in the inland areas and in the mountains and the Sierra Nevadas and points northward up into eastern Washington and Idaho and even into Montana. Starting to see some snow and WPC. Thank God they fixed this map here yesterday. They were having trouble up until a couple of hours ago, but it seems like they have fixed the issue. And this is the probability of at least 2 inches. And anything from blue, the darkest blue is 40%. The darkest red is 95%, so it's a fairly extensive area. Of course, it's mountains versus valleys. Some places are going to get more than others. And it actually extends pretty far south down into Arizona as well. Maybe even into Flagstaff might be getting some snow out of this. So makes total sense. And just to see in terms of magnitude of some greater amounts, this is the probability of at least 8. And we do actually now have some patches showing 40 to 50% or higher probability of at least 8 inches in Idaho, especially central and northern Idaho, northwestern Montana, northwestern Washington state, away from the big cities, obviously, in the elevated areas, and even also down in the Sierra Nevadas and in southwestern Colorado. Showing a probability there of at least 8. And take a look at this. This is WPC's rainfall forecast for the next 7 days. So starting from tonight, which is from 8 o'clock tonight to 8 o'clock Wednesday night, you can see the total lack of precip that is being forecast, liquid precip amounts. Although for some reason they don't have anything in down. Let me just check the radar again, just to see if this is. No, this is correct. And the radar's got a lot of rain in in Louisiana, Arkansas, and into Minnesota. It's got nothing, of course, everywhere else up and down the eastern seaboard. But interestingly enough, WPC apparently doesn't have any accumulating precip in Louisiana and Arkansas for tonight. So I think that forecast might be just a smidge of a bust. And look at the East though. Day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. It's not until day 6. No, and day 6, which is Sunday night into Monday night. So it's not until day 7 that they throw in a few hundredths along the immediate coast of southern New England and down through southern New Jersey and points southward. So it is very, very quiet. And of course, you can see more action and more precip coming into the west, particularly in central and northern California. And the 7-day rainfall forecast totals are actually pretty impressive, not only in the west, but up and down the Mississippi Valley for the next 7 days, with some 2 to 3 inch amounts being indicated in parts of eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, eastern Kansas, northwestern Missouri, up into further northeast into Iowa and Wisconsin. And on the west coast, or on the left coast, we've got the several to many inches being indicated from Washington to Oregon down into California, even reaching down into Southern California, showing a quarter of an inch amounts all the way down to San Diego. And even on the Mexico side, Joe, in Tijuana.
Well, it's getting into that time of the year for California. Their wet season, so to speak, generally during December, January, and February. So, maybe it's not overly unusual to see a place like San Diego seeing a significant rainfall, but it's not supposed to happen. According to the folks who drew up the long-range forecast, they said we're in our third consecutive La Nina year, and a La Nina translates into a drier than normal pattern out in the southwestern United States. We'll see if that actually does take place.
I got a sense from what I've been looking at. Now, look, a lot of this could change. Obviously, it could change when we get into December and when we get into January. But there are a few things going on that I think are kind of interesting. One is we've seen the last couple of years, Joe. I'm going to come back full screen for a moment because this will set us up for the next thing. Um, in the last couple of years, especially in during the winter months, there has been a general lack of storm activity in the Atlantic Ocean. So, and I'm talking about the whole Atlantic Ocean. And the same goes for the Pacific. There's been with these setups where you look at the jet stream, and oftentimes it's been like a straight ruler. There's hardly anything in terms of deep storms in more to the south, where there just hasn't been that much activity. And lately, when I've been looking at the maps, especially in the Pacific, it just has a different look at least right now, going into November. There's a lot of activity going on in the Pacific, a lot of both non-tropical systems and potential tropical systems. And I just wonder whether we're going to see something. Everybody, I guess everybody kind of looks at these sort of, what's the phrase I'm looking for? When they, the weather service, it's a La Nina winter, so they take out the La Nina map, the La Nina forecast map, and that's what they do. So they basically have been running the same thing for the last 3 years. There's no insight other than to say that it's a La Nina pattern. There are other things that might impact this, but this is what we're doing. Okay. I think from what I'm seeing, it just looks different this time around. There were some differences last year from the year before, and I think there's even more differences showing up now. And if they continue to be there, I think we may see some surprises along the way in the next couple of months.
Okay, well, we'll certainly look at that. As I said, has been saying, they can't be all the same. The weather patterns, that is, even though we are in a La Nina pattern for a third consecutive year. Last year, winter began, or meteorological winter began, with abnormally warm temperatures almost nationwide. And I honestly don't believe that's going to be the case this year. I think we're going to see some places that are going to have colder than normal weather. Maybe it'll be a case where the east is unusually warm and the west is rather cold. We'll see. But right now, you can't beat the fact that this temperature pattern here in the east is very unusual to see these temperatures. I mean, not the normal, but the record high temperatures of, let's say, Westchester Airport near White Plains, about, the highs are like 72, 73, 74. And we're going to be there, it looks like, over the upcoming weekend. Again, I'm not thinking that we're going to go much higher than that, but it's rather amazing that we're seeing such mild temperatures, this late in the season. But again, it happens. What year was it? I think it was in 2015 where
Yeah.
we had like 72-degree temperatures on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Something weird like that.
Hmm.
Every
So,
once in a
and
while,
that was that was the year of the Super El Nino.
but yeah, it doesn't see. But there's an El Nino year, and it's unusually mild or warm in late December. Here we are in a La Nina year, and we have an unusually mild, you know, weather pattern in early November. I don't know if there's maybe it's not so, as interconnected as one might think.
I I just think that it's foolish to say from a forecasting standpoint that that's the only thing that you look at. I guess that's the thing that I object to. I would find, obviously the position of the polar vortex, the strength of the polar vortex is going to makes a huge difference. Does it split? Does it not split? Do we get do we get the NAO to go negative at times through all of this? These are things that you're not going to really know because they're not 3 month or 6 month or 9 month um, activity. It's not a 6 9. It's not a long range pattern. The La Nina's been there now. It's going into its third year. The NAO, if it shows up, maybe it stays for 4 weeks or 6 weeks. You don't know when it's coming. You can only think that it might be coming, and then when it's there, you just start the clock in terms of when it's ultimately going to break down. And those are the variables that we just don't know. Go at this point. We're not going to. There's not going to be a magic moment that says, okay, now we know what the state of the NAO is going to be for the next 3 months. It's just not going to happen. But I wanted to bring up start off with looking at the GFS tonight. Um, this map here is the surface map with the showing the pressure anomalies, lower than normal pressures, higher than normal pressures. And by the way, on Friday, Joe, Martin will have been absorbed, and the GFS has a 927 low. Okay, a 927 pressure uh, southeast of Greenland and southwest of Iceland. I mean, this really, you see it here, analyzed on this afternoon is a 995, and they got it deepening down to a 972, then a 68, 65 by Thursday morning, 57, 42, 927 is the ultimate low pressure. So again, it's going to be interesting to see whether that's going to be a dynamic in some sort of pattern change, maybe across Europe. But take a look down in the Caribbean in particular and in the Southwest Atlantic as we move through time. Now, the next couple of days, pressures are near or maybe a little bit above normal because Lisa is moving into Belize. But after that, we're going to see a fairly large area of below normal pressures all through the Caribbean and Southwest Atlantic over the weekend, and that's going to actually cause another low to develop, or maybe a couple of low centers that are going to develop somewhere north of the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. And you've got a big high building southeastward into eastern Canada early next week, starting to build in later Monday, but it really builds in Tuesday and Wednesday. And that low is going to be pinned under there off the Florida coast and in the Bahamas. Could it become a tropical cyclone? I don't think I don't think you can rule it out. The GFS has got a very broad-looking 1,003 low, but it wouldn't shock me if we wind up with some sort of tropical system there come a week from now.
It will be something interesting to watch for. I certainly would not doubt it, especially with the high blocking that storm's path northward. it could just sit there in relatively warm waters and just spin and spin and finally evolve into a warm core system. It would not be at all surprising. However, some of the models are suggesting that over time it's going to end up actually physically crossing over Florida and maybe even getting its feet wet in the Gulf of Mexico. So,
Right. Well, this on this particular
uh,
run, it does get left behind over Florida, and then just sort of sits there and sits there, and I guess it waits for another short wave to come in the northern stream. Another high builds into the east, a colder high for the weekend of November 12th and 13th, and then it lifts it up the east coast as a basically a non-tropical system that moves up and probably brings a soaking rain to the northeast. The European's been kind of on the same page, but it does it faster. The European moves it along a bit sooner and tries to bring it up the coast. If we take a look at the European, interestingly enough, the European, as it loads, I'm going to use this map again, and let's go to the 0Z because the 18Z doesn't go out far enough. But here you go. Again, large area down here in the Caribbean and the southwest Atlantic of below normal pressures. This is the climatological area you'd look for development at this time of year anyway. And there you go. There's your low that comes out on Saturday and then sort of finds its way northward and then turns westward toward the Bahamas. It's got a little 1007 low there. On Tuesday, there's another low that's coming out of the plains that moves to the western lakes. And this is where the two models differ. The GFS wants to leave that low down there and wait for the next system beyond this one for next Tuesday night that moves into the western lakes. And then the European brings this low up the coast and just sort of side swipes us with some rain here along about, say, Wednesday or Wednesday night. I think there's a lot of variables. And by the way, take a look. While the European's doing that, it's got another system that it's developing down southwest of Jamaica, interestingly enough, on its 240 hours. So, who knows? That
this
may
may
not
be
be
one of the
done
most
yet.
active. This may be one of the most active November's tropical cyclone wise. And I don't know if I should say history because I don't have the full history of tropical systems this late in the season, but certainly it's one of the more dynamic Novembers, it would appear, at least in recent years.
Yeah, no question. Here's what it looks like on the longer range on the GFS. And the Europeans pretty much are the same idea. They're just maybe a little bit different in terms of the approach. But gradually, the ridge in the east, and here we are for the weekend, you can see the ridge right along the east coast, the deep troughing that's in the west. That ridge gradually gets flattened out, and then it pops up again uh, early next week as it waits for whatever's going on in the west to take hold, and then ultimately you see it gone, and then you go to a deep troughing in the eastern part of the United States, and a much colder look after day 10 or from after day 10. So again, I'm still thinking we're going to see this start to change. Things start to change around November, beginning to change around November 9th and 10th, and then continuing to go on from there. This is a much colder look to the overall pattern if we get to something that looks like this. Trough in the east, ridge in the west, trough somewhere near or along 160 out in the Pacific. Those are usually the signatures for colder weather coming into the east, and a negative East Pacific oscillation uh, uh, signal that the models are giving is also something we need to pay attention to.
Well, we'll certainly keep an eye on things in the coming days and weeks ahead. Anyway, are we going to come to a close here tonight?
Yeah, hang on a second. I just wanted to. This is the polar vortex on the latest run. The runs today have been stretching and in some cases even splitting the polar vortex in two over the next 2 weeks. So that'll be another thing that we're going to have to look at to see if that winds up materializing or not. So I just wanted to throw that out there that
Throw it out, Joe.
there are things going on in the upper atmosphere that we are going to certainly have to pay attention to. So yeah, so I'm gonna, because of the late start tonight. Uh, I got the new Briller Jeopardy. Let's hold it tomorrow. We're going to start at 8 o'clock, so I think we'll be able to do it tomorrow. So we'll hold it for tomorrow, and call it a night because it's getting late, and
Yes.
I want to go. I want to go to sleep.
I want to get
Oh,
a scoop of I want to get a scoop of death by chocolate ice cream
oh,
upstairs.
I have ice. You reminded me because I have I have chocolate and butter pecan.
Lovely.
I think I'm gonna have some. Okay, so everybody, thanks for being here tonight. Thank you again, from Howard Hassel, I believe it was. Yes, Howard Hassel for hitting the super chat tip jar, and we'll see you all tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's start time is 8 p.m. Okay, 8 p.m. tomorrow night. So we shall see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Joe.
Good night, Joe.